Hello and welcome to... yeah, that's the game I'm playing. Welcome back to where I play Phantasy Star 4. And we are going to be doing the Air Castle. All of it. In one go. Again, this isn't normally how I play the game. Now, the Air Castle is probably the longest dungeon in the whole game, and it's the only dungeon, as I said before, that has 2 bosses in it. It's so long, in fact, and I had my usual recording luck with random encounters, that editing down the random encounters actually cut about 1/3 off of this video. In any case, the problem with having Kyra for this dungeon is that while there are some enemies that are weak to fire, there are a lot of enemies that are resistant to it, like these jokers. By the way, the previous mechanical dungeons, this dungeon, and the next story dungeon are basically all places where Rika is going to consistently outdamage Chaz. Yeah, I wish we had a weapon that could defeat magic barriers. Oh well! In any case, the chest rewards average out to pretty good. Note how I said average, because there are some chest rewards that are totally dull, like that last one, and some that are fantastic. So, Frost Sabers are actually notable in that they're kinda glass cannons. They don't have that much hit points, however, they can also use Air Slash. Yeah, the same one that Chaz can use. So, the Air Castle was actually the second to last dungeon of Phantasy Star 1, and was the domain of the evil tyrant King Lashiek. Now, Lashiek was a bit of a wizard himself, but rather than come by his powers honestly like Lutz does, he got it through making pacts with the Dark God, or, well, Dark Force. You know, the usual whole evil in thy name, blood human sacrifices, that sort of thing. I'm not kidding about the last part. You even encounter someone in Phantasy Star 1 that says, "Help, I'm going to be sacrificed by Lashieks," and there's only one Lashiek, sorry. Yeah, there's a bit of a stretch here where I have my usual luck with random encounters, that is, not that many. Because it seems like sometimes when I'm, just prepping for a run, I'm like, oh, hey, I need to hit some random encounter so I can gain levels. But as soon as I start recording, the enemies are like, "He's recording! Get him, quick! Everybody! Pull in reinforcements from Phantasy Star Online if you have to!" I was just poking up there to see if there was anything worthwhile. More money. Money that I could easily get in a couple of random encounters. Which does remind me, I've actually started playing Phantasy Star 2 again. I mean, I do have the cartridge, but apparently someone came out with the so-called Phantasy Star 2 Easy Patch. Because you see, in the Sega Ages Phantasy Star collection, which contained 1 through 4 for the PlayStation 2, there was actually a difficulty slider for Phantasy Star 2, and on Easy mode, it would give you 4 times the battle rewards in terms of experience and money. So someone made a patch for the Phantasy Star 2 ROM that gave you those increased battle rewards. And I must say, playing it with those increased rewards makes it quite a bit more fun for me, as prepping for new dungeons and areas isn't the enormous slog that it used to be. So it's not so much really an easy patch as a stop waste. This game now no longer wastes your goddamn time patch. Okay, that's probably a bit harsh. But the thing is, I kind of like games to be, you know, sped along. I don't like to be stuck down in one particular section of any game. And this can be a problem for a lot of the 80s RPGs, most notably Dragon Warrior, the original Final Fantasy. Oh, Phantoms! The reason I used Disrupt is not only because I knew it would kill all of them, but because those Phantom enemies can, you know, cast Corrosion. Not something you want to be hit by when you're trying to trek toward a boss. Once again, the random encounters are stacking up as usual. Now, Phantasy Star 1 dungeons were different from the others in later games in the classic series, in that they used a first-person perspective like Wizardry or Shining in the Darkness or Might and Magic. This was dropped for later games, and I can't say I blame them. Oh yes, Metis. Why Kyra is the best for out-of-combat healing. Metis is probably one of the most powerful healing skills out there. I think only Neyrez is more powerful. But Metis is a skill, so it doesn't take away technique points better used for burning enemies alive. And here's the other treasure. The Genocyber Claw is not only a really powerful weapon for Rika, but it also has a chance to cause instant death on enemies. There are a couple of weapons that can do that, but the Shadow Saber isn't worth it, and the other one we won't be getting until a fair bit later. Now, getting to the air castle itself originally was a job and a half, because you needed a whole stack of plot items just to get to the thing. Hell, you needed one just to make it even show up. But aside from that, you needed the Lerma nuts and a Laconian pot to hold them in. And you had to climb a whole dungeon to get to the air castle anyway. You had to fight a boss on the way up. Yeah, the item you needed to get the air castle to appear was the Arrow Prism. I forget where you even found that one. Okay, first I stand around like a doofus, and then I actually decide to progress. Can't say I've ever really had a good relationship with the dungeons in most Phantasy Star games. Phantasy Star 1 required graph paper, of course. Phantasy Star 2, it was always hard going. And in Phantasy Star 3, you had no idea how powerful dungeon stuff would be compared to the overworld stuff. Okay. You don't even have to press the talk button to get these guys to fight you. You just need to walk up to them. Okay. Using all attacks on these three is actually a fairly bad idea. However, because this is a Let's Play, I'm going to have to show you why. But first, buffs. Yeah, the Warla skill is basically a defense up ability. However, having Kyra use it frees up Rika to use the speed up buff, meaning you can get all of your buffs up on the first turn. Okay, here's about where I demonstrate why it's a terrible idea to use all attack skills on that, or techniques on these bosses. As soon as I start the turn, might as well use the most powerful one I have. Negatus is nice, but it doesn't work on bosses. It's an all-kill skill. Okay, let's see what this does. Okay, Thunder Blast is a retaliatory combination attack. If you hit them with all attacks at any point in the turn, they will forgo their usual actions and use that attack. It's actually a lightning attack, so it will hurt Ren really bad. And they never flub it, unlike me. However, when one of them is down, you can use all of the all-attack abilities you want. I'm not sure exactly when this enemy design was first used, but I'm just going to assume it was Phantasy Star 2. If anyone knows better or at least different, they can correct me. By the way, I'm fairly sure those physical attacks also count as lightning element, which means they hurt Ren pretty bad too. Ah, finally. Explode is Chaz's instant death move, and it is a fairly high chance of success, plus it affects both robots and organics. In any case, I warp back to the beginning because it's actually shorter to just run straight through the castle than to wander around all the way back. Yeah, that last boss actually used to wreck us when me and Regdren first started playing the game because we kept on using all attacks on them, and that doesn't work. Okay, we are now in the second half of the air castle. And the floor design, I think, is supposed to be reminiscent of how dungeons were generally laid out in Phantasy Star 1. I wouldn't be at all surprised if that were intentional, considering that this game, at least in part, is a throwback to other Phantasy Star games. It's a game that's very aware of its history, not only plot-wise, but also in referencing other aspects. Okay, Chaos Sorcerers are basically kind of the same as the one we fought back in the shuttle. I think they have a couple of new tricks in normal enemy form, but they can do a ton of damage to you if you let them live to do it. They have a bunch of all-attack spells. I think they have 3 separate ones: Hewn, Corrosion, and Tandle. By the way, it's absolutely necessary to get all the treasures up here the first time through, because this dungeon is not going to be here after we're finished with it. I actually missed the Cyberclaw last playthrough. Considering how long I've been playing it, that's just a bit shameful even. Yeah, I actually left that in just to show you what generally does happen if those things even ambush you. But thankfully, they're organic, so Rika kills them dead. Yeah, Rika is even more useful than usual combat-wise in this dungeon than she normally is, and that's saying quite a bit. I'm not sure there's ever been such a combat-effective primary healer in a JRPG, but again, try to correct me. I want to be correct. I'm not gonna bite anyone's head off if they tell me I'm somehow wrong about these sort of things. I like to know the right and true answers of things, it's why I watch Quite Interesting all the time. And we're coming to the end of this particular stretch of the dungeon. I hate these last-minute encounters. It's like the... It's like the game is just trying to wipe you out right before the boss room, just as a big FU. Oh, hey there! You're not looking so hot, Lashiak. Yeah, they didn't steal the Eclipse Torch because they needed it. They didn't even steal it because you needed it. They just stole it because Lashiak wanted his big ol' pay-per-view electric cage grudge match of the century against Lutz. And Lashiak can really, really hurt you if he puts his mind to it. I mean, more so than any other boss we've fought so far. In fact, he's also fairly fast for a giant zombie wizard man. Because I think he actually hits us before I get my defensive buffs up. Oh yeah, here he goes. Yeah, the thing about Thunder Halberd is that it's an attack that derives off of magic but attacks physical, which means that Rune is especially vulnerable to it. I once actually tried to lowball Lashiak, which was a huge mistake, and it actually one-shotted Rune. And combination attacks are finally coming up me. And that's his other attack, which is really painful even with buffs up. I don't even want to know how much damage it would do if my buffs weren't up. I use the word buff a lot. Yeah, Lashiak does not actually fight you that differently in this game than he did in Phantasy Star 1. In fact, well, he does use that. That's just a breather attack, and he uses it way more than usual in this fight. So yeah, he doesn't fight you that much differently in this game than he did in Phantasy Star 1, where his attacks generally hit all of the party. However, they didn't do much damage if you had an item called the Laconian Jewel. However, in this game, there is no such option, so if you're not careful or don't keep your healing up absolutely diligently, it's very possible for Lashiak to two-shot your whole party. However, he does have a big weakness, and that is fire. You saw my shooting star attack did about 600 damage a pop. However, he is also a bit weak to Destruct, which means that Rika, when she has time, if she ever has time, does a pretty fair chunk of damage to him as well. In fact, most of the major bosses have some kind of weakness to Destruct. Dark Force did, Lashiek does, the Azathals did. Oh yes, he did use Reinforce, but that's a buff, so we can get rid of that with easily. And he used Possession again! I don't know what it was with this particular fight. During my prep fight, he just kept on using Thunder Albert all the time. And Rika makes the save. Though my favorite bad guy tries to smash the MacGuffins thing was probably in Grand Stream Saga. Basically, your hero guy has an item, a bracer, that allows him to restore things that have been broken. So the bad guy tries to break the 4 elemental crystals you need to save the floating islands. However, after the bad guy leaves, your hero just walks on over, use the bracer on them, and boom, new crystals, and you go about your quest. So it defeated Lashiek, but Lashiek is a lich, so he'll just be back until we take care of the real problem. Thanks for bringing the Eclipse Torch back, it really tied the room together. Now, a funny thing about the Eclipse Torch is that it's actually an item in your inventory that you can use as an attack item in battle, and it casts a kind of weaker version of Saint Fire. But there's one thing we really need to do with it. As soon as we get there, of course. Here we go. Okay, next episode of Phantasy Star 4, we are going to be taking on the Garuberk Tower. See you then.